Hello, everybody. Welcome to our conversation and our talk, our presentation um, with Amigos of the Hispanic Heritage USA. My name is Carlos Merino, and I'd like to kind of introduce very briefly, take a couple of minutes just to tell who we are before we go with Martha, who's going to be our host, and she is going to present our speaker today. I'm a member of Héroes de Cavite, which is a cultural association, okay? And we are very interested and focused on Hispanic heritage in the U.S. Something that I particularly and all am very interested as American citizen of Spanish origin. And so we are joining forces or joining interest with other organizations. They are also in the U.S. Focus on this Hispanic heritage. One of them, or among them, we have Cultural Heritage Society, Camino Real de Tierra Adentro, and en el Septentrion. We have the Instituto de Cultura Oregoniana. We have Héroes de Cavite, which is the one I'm a member of. We have the Philippine American Chamber, the honorary consul of Spain and El Paso, Texas. Martha is a member of the consul, the honorary consul. And so we have also Universidad de Guadalajara, the Guadalajara University, which is a Mexican university with based in Spain. Cultural Association, Mexico Hispanic. We have the Facebook group of the Descendant of the Oñate Expedition that our presenter is gonna talk about. Okay, so the Facebook group is Descendant of the 1598 Oñate Expedition. Are open to more organizations to come, but we definitely are kind of, we want to start having a conversation in English. I think we have a lot of support from Europe as well. There are some members of organization in Europe, from Spain or in other countries. There are already a lot of experts, historians, archaeologists, all kinds of experts that we want to kind of join forces and find out, kind of to get to know our history. That sometimes it is blurred, sometimes it's not clear what happened, who was who. There are a lot of myths, there are a lot of questions that definitely we want to clarify, and we want to kind of be educational about, to know about our origin in the U.S. So basically, to just wrap it up, sum it up, we are going to have the presentation, then there's going to be a Q&A. Feel free to raise your hand. You know how to do it. You can go to reactions and hit raise your hand. And after the presentation, well, first we'll have a summary, then we'll have the question and answers, and then we'll have some time to socialize. And if you feel like you want to have a conversation, then we're not gonna record that, okay? So we can have a time to chat and socialize a little bit virtually. So I think that, so I'd like to just to mention something before I forget. We have a YouTube channel, Amigos of Hispanic Heritage, okay? It's starting, it's brand new, it has a couple of videos, but we're going to add more material as we go. This is just the first step, and with the idea of tearing down that invisible wall of that between Europe and the United States in terms of our common history, you know. in particular Spain, because Europe is a very broad thing. Sometimes we're thrown there in the mix, but this is without no doubt, this is about Hispanic origin, and we have our own history that we want to claim, all right? And we want to talk about, and we're going to learn and share, okay? And enjoy, why not, by learning it. So, without further ado, Marta, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carlos. I just want to thank, first of all, Angel Benzal, who is our president, for making this very first program in English available to us. We have been working for over a year with the board, and Carlos Merino is on the board, as well as Sergio Pavon, who I see here. Al Borrego and I had the pleasure of being in Cartagena last October with Angel and with many of the people that are here. So I do see Sergio and Belen. Let's see, Paco Moreno was there. So thank you all for joining us and for being here on this very first program. Sergio will be giving us a summary, and he is also a member of the board of Héroes de Cavite and is from Brussels. I do want to let everyone know that we are all over the world, and one of the things that we want to do is erase La Leyenda Negra, or the Black Legend, which is a false legend of Spain in the New World. And so I have the distinct pleasure today of introducing Mr. Gary De León. Gary is from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He graduated from the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee in education, particularly social studies. He's taught in Milwaukee, he's taught in Houston, and now in Canutillo, Texas. He is a descendant of the families that came with Don Juan de Oñate, and it is my pleasure to introduce Gary to you. Gary, I'm so excited to hear your talk today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Am I on? Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna welcome everybody, and I hope you enjoy this presentation. I'm going to, can I have you guys let me screen share? Because I'm going to show my PowerPoint with this, and it's good to see everybody. And of course, this Don Juan Oñate and the expedition is a big thing here in the El Paso area, because about 424 years ago was a time when Oñate and about 500 people had come to the Rio Grande by San Elizario, Texas, and spent about a week there. And at that area, they had the first mass west of the Mississippi River. They had a huge feast. Some people say it was the first Thanksgiving. Other people say it was a feast because we didn't meet the Native Americans from the area yet. That didn't happen until about a week after the time that we were at San Elizario. But this is also the area where Don Juan Oñate put the Spanish flag on the ground, and he claimed this land for Spain, for every area that where the water from the Rio Grande, from where it started to the end. And he, interesting thing he said this was for the, not just for Spain, but for the protection of all the people in the area. So it was not just good for the Spanish, but also good for the Native Americans. But we just had a celebration in San Elizario, and I gave a speech about, was it last week or the week before? So we discussed this. But and let me see if I can now share screen, because I do have some pictures. I want to. Okay, great, awesome. Let me see if I can find, where they came from. Okay, so let me start my slide presentation so I can show you guys. So this is the talk here, Descendant, the Oñate Expedition from Spain, and of my Facebook page. and the people who came from really from Europe and also from Mexico and who
Gary,
came
I don't see your screen yet.
Uh-oh. Okay, let's see if I can. Do you see it yet or no? Let me try to go back.
Not yet.
Okay, let me. Oh, maybe I have to hit the share. I wonder if I have to hit the. See it now? What am I doing wrong? It's been a year since I've done the. Hold on just a second. Zoom. Let me try it again. Oh, I think I was supposed to hit that.
There.
Okay. Okay, I missed one button there. That's what I missed. Okay, so I had it originally set up, but that's
There you go.
okay, awesome. Okay, you guys can see that, right?
Yep,
Okay.
I see it.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, so anyways, when we look at the Oñate Expedition, we see a lot of reminders here in our area of El Paso, also in New Mexico. We have presentations, we have festivals, like the most recent history symposium on the left side. We just had that, and every year they have festivals and programs in San Elizario and Isleta, Texas, which is right next to El Paso. What looks like a pageant down on the lower right-hand side, that was in Española, New Mexico. And every year they have a big festival on this. And COVID, they had stopped. This was Oñate High School. I believe they renamed it after the there's some people who wanted the name changed. So we are seeing that. You do see, I didn't get a picture of the sign, but they have on Highway 375, Don Juan Oñate Trail, but you also see the El Camino Real Trail. You see this all through El Paso, through New Mexico, all the way up to Okeawinge, which is where they settled. You have a landmark here by this restaurant is now closed. Used to love going to that restaurant, La Hacienda. And by the Rio Grande, they have this landmark that shows this is where Oñate had crossed from the south side of the river to the north side. And if you were to go to the rest area on I-10 between Texas and New Mexico, they actually have replicas of the wagon were used on this trip. And they have like little signs that explain it. Also, if you go to New Mexico, plenty of historical landmarks about this expedition. So, you know, there's a lot of information out there, but what we found is a lot of people don't know a whole lot about it. Matter of fact, in my teaching, when I ask the students, and I have mostly seniors, juniors, and seniors, I ask them if they've ever heard of Don Juan Oñate, and most of them never heard of him. And a few of them maybe even, I forgot to mention, you go to the airport and we've got like about a 40-foot statue of Don Juan Oñate at the airport. It's beautiful. They changed the name because of the controversies, and I would think that at the time there weren't enough people who supported Don Juan Oñate to say, let's keep the name the same. They changed it to the equestrian, but we know that's Don Juan Oñate. And it's a beautiful statue if you haven't been out there to see that. Well, give you a little bit about my background. I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And, you know, when I was growing up, I had, on my mom's side, my Aunt Pat was a genealogist. She loved talking about history. And my grandma also loved, on my dad's side, loved talking about stories of the past. And I wish I had written those down. I wish I had recorded them. And if I've got any young people on here, you know, I would just recommend you listen to the stories, but also record them, because once people pass away, we really lose the history. But my Aunt Pat, one thing I found out through her is she always made the stories of the family interesting. Every time she saw us, there was always an interesting story, whether it was, I remember one time she told us that the family members changed their name because they got upset because one person was on the Confederate side of the war, the other, and he didn't want anything to do with them. So they changed their family spelling. We have some really interesting stories of our history, and that I think will, I always hear genealogists tell me, oh man, I can't get the young people to like it. And I tell these stories and they just don't seem to care. And if you can share your love with the past with them, I think that really helps. But my Aunt Pat was kind of like the person who got me started. And my grandma didn't tell us a whole lot about her past in New Mexico, but told us a lot about life in the Great Depression growing up. When I graduated from college, I made a promise to her to make a family history book. Actually, twisted my arm and had me make that promise. And what happened was, well, I didn't write the book, and for 35 years, I'm still married. I met my wife. We got married. We had kids. There are my two kids with us there, and I started my job, and I kind of forgot about that idea of writing the history book. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see it below here. This my school where I teach at Cavite High School, and I didn't really start my genealogy work until she'd passed away. And when she passed away, guilt kind of drove me to start to write this book, A History of the De León Family, and really, I'm genealogist. We go to ancestry.com, and I should say my grandma Luisa, I just had her mother and father's last name. I had her name. So I went to ancestry.com. I started following the little green leaves, and I really didn't do any scholarly research. I just started saying, oh, this person's related, this person's related. And the next thing I know is I'm related to King Ferdinand. And that's when things got really excited. I did that in like 2-3 weeks. And when I was doing this, I thought, well, what's the big deal? Genealogy isn't that hard. You just go to Ancestry and follow the green leaves. So I remember that I started putting pictures up of kings and queens, and I'd never really studied European history that much before. I hadn't really paid as much attention to it. But all of a sudden, I started becoming the expert on King Ferdinand, and found out I was all the way down to Charlemagne. Genealogist in New Mexico who said there's no way the Baca family can be related to King Ferdinand. For that to have happened, a 6-year-old would have had to become pregnant. So the air came up out of my balloons. I got sad, and I'd actually quit looking at my research for a while. Also, I got teased by a lot of people because, when you say you're royal blood, you don't, you go and proclaim it to everybody nice and loud, right? So anyways, after probably about 3-4 months, I decided I'm going to go back to my family history, relook at it. But this time I'm going to do like what I was taught in my college years is you have to have proper resources. You have to family tree. I made sure you had to have some kind of certificate, birth, death, wedding, something. Their name has to be on a census. Don't just accept those doggone groups. And probably about a year later, I found out that we were related to Bartolome Romero, who's one of the people who went on the again. Was related to somebody with the Oñate Expedition. And we had been living in El Paso since 1996. But I really didn't pay too much attention to it beforehand. But when I found out was with the Oñate Expedition. I said, so I tried to see if there was anything with the Oñate Expedition ancestors, if I'm a descendant, there was any groups like with the American Revolution, they have the Sons of the American Revolution, Daughters of the American Revolution. These guys, they have monthly meetings, they do all kinds of things. It's amazing what the Daughters of the American Revolution do quite a bit. So I didn't find anything with Oñate Expedition. And so there's got to be something. There's got to be something more out there. There was a group in New Mexico that used to give like you a certificate if you could had proof that your family was, one of the first families in New Mexico, but they had stopped probably about 6 months before I found out. So that didn't help me out. And I just decided I got to do something with this. So I decided to start off by making a Facebook page, and here it is, the Descendants of Oñate Expedition. And I thought maybe I could didn't really have any great reason for starting it except to say, well, I'm a descendant, so I want to learn more about this and maybe talk to other people who are descendants of the Oñate Expedition. And when I first started, I thought, maybe I'll have 100 people join. I don't know. I don't think it's that many, because I really didn't know the size and scope of this expedition when I first started this. Now, I should tell you, I should back up for a moment. I had never been south of Chicago until 1996. So the southern area, I know nothing about this. We'd always traveled more in the north part of the country. I'd never been to New Mexico. This is all foreign to me. And after about a month, I had 100 people. I even want to say like within 2 weeks. And, within a short time, I had 1,000 people. Now I've got over 2,000, and, just some fascinating people who are on. And we've kind of grown into, there's become a purpose. At the beginning, there really was no great purpose. And I would put down Expedition Member of the Day, where I found the names on Gary Felix's websites, and he has an alphabetical order. And that was basically what we started with. And then we got some really scholarly people into the group. We've got the New Mexican state historian and Robert Martinez. We've got the name is escaping me. He's the same one who told me I'm not related to King Ferdinand Esquivel. And he's just an amazing genealogist. He's from New Mexico, and we've got professors, we've got people basically all over the world. Mexico, we've got people from Spain. We have quite a few from there also. And we do have some people who are basically all over. We got people from Asia, had a few from Africa, Europe. So I don't know how many we have from South America. We have a few, but there's a lot of people who are interested. Now, you don't have to be a descendant. And you want to learn about it. We've had people said, I'm not related, but I'd learn more. And we've had we know that some family members and people who are trying to figure out their genealogy. They've gotten help on this. I know that I'll share a story with somebody I learned about through this Facebook pages. This one lady wrote me a message and said, I looked at this web page and I looked at our DNA from Ancestry, and she goes, I found out that my grandmother knew your great-grandmother in New Mexico. We didn't know anybody in New Mexico as far as family. And we just know my grandma moved in 1921 to South Dakota. But so she really didn't know too much about her New Mexico background. But anyways, I agreed to meet this lady, and I wanted to talk to her mother. Her mother is 105 years old, and we drove to, it's about an hour from here, Hondo, New Mexico. And I remember when we first got there, my wife was like, are you sure you want to go see them? We don't know these people. You know, we don't know what they're like. I said, well, that's okay. I want to see this lady. I got so many questions. And they were a little nervous about seeing us too. The lady had brought her brothers and sisters, and after they saw we were okay, they welcomed us, then they left. But I had an amazing talk with this lady for about 3 hours. I don't think I could have gotten as good as information from a book as just sitting down talking to her. And her mind was as clear as she remembered everything. She remembered the dirt floors. She remembered the things about my great grandmother, and I never met my grandmother. So I'm sorry, I didn't meet my great grandmother, but this lady knew my great grandmother, which is amazing. So I think a lot of people have benefited from this group. Now, one of the things we tend to do is we focus on genealogy. There's some areas we tend to stay away from. When we've gotten into these areas, it does create a lot of tension. 2 years ago, if you guys remember, you had the young folks protesting in the United States, and they were knocking down statues. And it started out on the East Coast, where they were knocking down statues of Confederate soldiers, and then they got to be some of the presidents. And then they came after Oñate in New Mexico, and that controversy spilled over onto our page. And some people were, we had both sides of this. We have some people who are part Native American, and some of them say, well, we don't think what Oñate did was right. We have the people who are very strong, Viva Oñate folks, and it got pretty ugly. The arguments got on there pretty bad. And some of the activists on the other side got onto our page, threatened some of our members. It got a little bit ugly. So we, the incident, for some of those who may not be aware of why people got upset, is the incident at Acoma. And without getting real deep detail into that, basically what happened was the Acoma natives, they live on about a 300-foot mesa. And what happened was, I guess some of the Spaniards were up there, got into some kind of argument. There's disagreements on what the argument was, but bottom line is the Acoma Indians threw them down over a 300-foot cliff. And I've been there. I've seen those cliffs. They're just steep straight down. And 13 Spaniards were murdered. So Oñate, when news got back to him, he had to make some soldiers. They captured some of the Acoma, where the folks who got upset about it is they put the natives on trial. And this was all not, it wasn't just done on a spur of the moment. This was done where there were trials. They had talked and got advice. Catholic priests were part of this, and they cut the toe. This is where they got some difference in the Spanish. I'm sorry, is move my hands around a lot. Did they cut the foot off of several Acoma Indians, or they cut the toe off? So that's really where people said he abused the Indians, and really easily could have called for the death penalty, but Spanish law stated you can't do that to the Native Americans. So Oñate was following the rules. But that one has created a lot of issues. We kind of say we don't talk about the Acoma Indians anymore, kind of like that. Remember that song from that recent Disney cartoon, right? We don't talk about, just saying we don't talk about the Acoma. So yeah, we try to stay away from that one. And a lot of people want, they get on our site and they want to talk about you know, what am I? Am I Hispanic, Hispanic X, Latino, Latinx? That can create some controversy. So we sometimes do get controversy, but most of the time it's really it is about trying to help each other with genealogy, celebrating the history and contributions of the expedition. That's what we're about. And and I said before, we've got some very smart people about this. So I've been really blessed that these people have joined. I've learned a lot from them. And that was playing my, well, let me move on from there. So the second part is, why are we interested in where our ancestors come from? Well, and this is going to be the second part of my speech here, is the DNA test. Maybe we want to know about our ethnic background, who are we, where we come from, and why did they come to the new world? Why leave the comfort of your own home to come to a new place? And that's always an interesting question. Okay. When I think about the expeditions, I sometimes think about our ideas that we want to go to Mars today. Matter of fact, I just read last week that Elon Musk, the guy on the left here, he thinks we're going to be on Mars within 10 years. I don't know. I'm not a space person, so I don't know how accurate that is. I know I talked to somebody from NASA, and he said this probably won't happen in my lifetime, just because the challenges they have. But I know Musk and Jeff Bezos, both want to colonize Mars. Super rich guys, and they don't need to go to Mars. Now, I don't think those two are going to go themselves. They're going to send people. But when I thought about the Don Juan de Oñate expedition, it just made me think a lot about going to Mars, because there are some similarities. You've both of them, rich people are putting their money into this. They don't really need to. These guys could live their lives very well, just like Don Juan de Oñate. He was very rich. His parents were aristocrats from Zacatecas. His dad basically owned most of the mines in that area, and Oñate was very rich. So there's really no reason for him to go out in the desert and go to a dangerous new area, but he wanted to. So it's kind of interesting for me to think that they would take their wealth, because they're going to have to spend their money, just as Musk and Bezos are trying to. They're putting their money up for these rockets. Oñate put a lot of his money on this expedition. Spain basically said you could go, but you have to fund the trip. And probably the other interesting comparison I came up with was thinking about the leaders of today and back then, is you had several different people who wanted to come to New Mexico. One by the last name of De León. And I won't get into all the teaser, okay? But he wanted to come over here. What do they get out of it? Well, there might be potential wealth in North America, potential gold and silver. They didn't find any in 1540, but there were new stories coming out that they were there. So these guys were willing to put their money into it. And basically, one of the rich people who went against Oñate, he got in some legal troubles. There's one other one, I forgot his name. I have to go back to my notes. But De León got sick, and he couldn't make the trip. So Oñate won the rights to the expedition. Okay, otherwise we'd be saying it would be the De León expedition. So what we're going to cover today, guys, is I want to give you some information where the information I got is from, the background of the Spanish Empire, just a little tad, not much, because I have to cut some things. Why did people want to go to the New World? a background. This is what I really want to focus on, is the background where the expedition members came from by numbers. And I also wanted to see, was there anything of the military members? Was there some kind of pattern? Because as a social studies person, I'm always looking for patterns. Then we're going to see, as far as the numbers of who stayed in New Mexico, there weren't many. Not many people stayed. Okay, so where's my information come from? My first part I got when I first started this was Gary Felix's website, and it's and I will have this. I'll share it with. It's on my Facebook page, but I will share it with this group so that if any of you want to see this, so you don't have to copy it from what we're looking at. But Gary Felix's website was my first place where I used to get information from. But one of my members, Esquivel, told me this guy signed up, but he didn't go. And this guy signed up, but he didn't go. It got a little bit frustrating. So he told me, go to this book. It's by David Snow, New Mexico's First Colonists. And that's on my bibliography. But it's fairly short, but it's really packed with, if you want to know where people came from, what part of Spain, what part of Mexico, this is a really good book. I highly recommend that. You could actually look at the muster rolls from 1597. There's two of them. This is where it gets a little confusing. You look at the muster roll in December, and a lot of these people had written down they were going to go, but their name was not in the 1598 muster roll. And maybe a little reason why is because many of these people had to wait like 2 years. The expedition was delayed by 2 years. A lot of political infighting, where the viceroy didn't want Oñate to take off on the trip. Again, a teaser for the next for my next presentation. But what happened was some of these people left. Oñate originally had over 1,000 people signed up, and by the time he had under 200. Now, some people didn't show this either. We'll talk about that in just a moment. They have a muster roll of people living in 1601 and 1609. So I got those primarily from this book here. And there's another book that has that, the Spanish Colonial Settlement and Landscapes by Barrett. So that's another, I don't know if you guys can see it. This light really does not do any favors to that, but I have those in the bibliography. The difficulties are, I will say, first of all, the Spanish were very good with their record keeping. Incredible to think about that, that these trips took place in 1598. But the records were incomplete. Not all women were put on this list, and children and servants they did not put on. And that's just the time we had. Okay. Hold on. You're having in the background there, but sorry guys, that kind of threw me off. Okay. So we go to the basic background of Spain, and what you got. So I'm getting some background talk, guys. I don't know if I can just a second here. People thinking,
sorry here, please everybody turn your mics off, please.
Yeah.
I think we have a background.
I know there's a way to do this, guys. I'm sorry. Hold on. I know there's a way for me to. Sorry guys, it's been a while since I've done Jeff. We can cut that. Okay, so let me just get back to this. So Spain for many years has had many different groups in their area. You've had the Greeks. Well, actually you started, hold on a second. All right. Okay. So I don't know why I'm having trouble here. Now it just kind of threw me off. Sorry, guys. Just kind of let me get my bearings straight here again. Okay, so just a real quick 25-cent history of Spain here is that Spain is not just one group of the Spanish. Really, you had different groups live in Spain over the years, and you had the Romans, the Greeks, you had the Celts in some area up in the northern area, the Gaelics, and then of course for about 700 years you had the Moors from Africa. So I know I'm missing some other groups, but you had different groups living in Spain, and it was basically split between Aragon and Castile. And we look at the Jews coming to Spain, and the Jewish people had come. If you look at the Bible, they say during the some people had come to Spain. They believe Spain was Tarshish in the Old Testament, and the Jews all came to Spain AD when the Romans had taken over it. Although early art of Jews being would be Merida, so they found some grave sites with Jewish signs on there. Well, over the years, the Jewish, they had times where they got along with people. Sometimes they were persecuted, and we do know in 1492 you have the Inquisition, and that's where exaggerated how much Jews died, how many, what happened to them. Some of them may have. I'm going to tell you, I don't know the whole background of it, so I don't want to go too much into it, but I do know some of them were persecuted. That's much as I can. Don't know as far as what the numbers are. Okay, but some of the Jews came to Spain, and the reasons why the Spaniards came is why do people come to new areas? Poverty drives people. Spanish Inquisition, we talked about that. Stories of riches. Young people want to make money. They've heard about previous expeditions. If you live in certain areas, you see people getting off the ships, bringing gold and such. That's a big reason why you want to go. The folks in Mexico, big reason why they'd want to come to New Mexico. If you're living in an area, you might say, well, I'm living in a fairly peaceful area. Why would I want to go to this area of the unknown? And first reason is to own land. Land is a big reason for anybody to do anything. The 3 G's, God, gold, and glory. God is more with the church, but Oñate did talk about his desire to bring God, the knowledge of God, to the native people. Gold, obviously, to make money, and glory for yourself. So that could be that you could be an hidalgo, which this may be a part of the reason why Oñate decided to go on the trip, is that if you were born in Mexico, there was no way you're going to probably be a person of noble heritage. But if give you, I'm trying to give an English equivalent there, you'd be of royal blood, and that's important for some folks. Also, you were exempted from taxes, freedom from being in prison for unpaid debts, if you were being persecuted, and probably from Spain, most of them were from the poor middle class. And I know part of my map is blocked there with the names, but it was about an 8-week trip. And they would go from Spain to Cuba. They'd take trips to Veracruz. That's how they would get to Mexico. This trip took about 8 weeks. And just kind of looking at that whole Mars expedition, that's about 86 days. Kind of interesting. That's about the same amount of time too that it would take from Spain to Cuba. Also about the same time the Oñate expedition took from Santa Barbara to San Elizario. Interesting little side bit. Okay, so let's look at the people from Spain and see what we know. And I have a chart here. I'm going to go through each one of these, but if you were to look at the areas of Spain, you'd notice 3 regions make up about 70% of the expedition members. That's Andalusia, Castilla Nueva, and Extremida. And if I show you a map, and I'm going to go through each area, I did this, colored it myself, and I thought this was pretty interesting. I noticed that in certain areas, but Mexico, right, and where it's about 70% of the people are coming from this area. These 3, Extremida and Castilla Nueva, and you only had one from. You don't get too many East Coasters at all. Very, very few. I'm going to break it down by region, but you look Andalusia. I kind of give you some pictures. Some of you might be like me. I've never been to Spain, but that's definitely on my bucket list. I'd like to see these areas. Remember, it's 30, and my guess is a lot of them who were in these areas probably saw ships being unloaded. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. I got cut there. Can everybody hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, and Alberto, I am going to get the PowerPoint too, folks. It's also on my
Just a reminder, please, everybody, I'm going to turn off mics and videos for the time being, all right? Thank you.
yeah, I don't know what. Okay, I don't know what happened there in the little. Okay, so oh no, this is the wrong one. I'm sorry. Let me get the right one here, guys. Because I made 2 of these, so that was a problem. We got cut. I wanted to share with you guys. Okay, can you see this one? Where it says Andalusia? I hope so.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So then the next area is Castilla Nueva, like the La Mancha area, which is in the middle area, kind of a dry area. Similar to me, it looks a lot to me like El Paso. And give you an idea where some of these, especially around the Toledo area, is in that area. We had some people from there. Extremadura, 23 members. So that makes up 70%. A real hilly areas is what I see where these folks are coming from, and a little greener in this area than Costa Nueva. But I give you an idea where they were from. And Canary Islands. If this is Spain, you got the Canary Islands down here. I counted 11 members were actually from the Canary Islands. And there's some beautiful pictures. I could have put some other ones. The Canary Islands look extraordinarily beautiful. They got, nice beaches and such. Some areas are kind of rough, like this one down here. That's a rough looking island there. And most of these people stay. The Canary Islanders, if any of you have DNA in you that shows you're from Africa, I'm guessing it may be part of the reason could be the Canary Islands, and I have that myself, and so one of my descendants is from this area. Okay, now the eastern part, very few came from there. Barcelona, one person, and Murcia, one. And I'm not really sure why it is that you don't see many from the eastern part, but I found that to be interesting. The northeastern, about 7.5% were from Galicia, Asturias, and León, this area right in here. And then the north coast, which would be the Basque country. This is where Oñate's parents were actually from. This is where you saw about 16 members, or 8% of the expedition members came from this area. And in this area, you would have seen people, especially in the Basque area, they were pretty good sailors. So you would expect to see that they were part of the folks that would want to go on the ocean trips. The northern interior, this would be in this area, and Castilla Vieja had 15 people. That's probably, I guess that'd probably be the fourth most right in here. And Salamanca had 2, Zamora 1, Zaragoza 2. So they had a good amount in this area also. So this kind of gives you an idea where they're from. Portugal, I found that not a whole lot of people came from Portugal, but there was no real big pattern here. Oh, there would be one pattern. Excuse me. Let me go back to the map. If you look at Portugal, nobody was from the interior of Portugal, all on the coastline. So nobody from this area. That's one part that interested me. I thought that was pretty interesting. But most of them had like 2 or 3 from each area. And the other thing I noticed as I looked at Portugal and Spain is most of the people came from smaller towns. You didn't see a whole lot of people coming from like Madrid, Barcelona, Lisbon. And these were cities that were already around by this time. So I guess that you could make some inferences there. If you were from the city, I guess you liked life and you weren't ready to go somewhere else. That's just the way I read that. Let's look at Mexico for a moment. In Mexico, if you look at this, you can see some patterns really emerging. Is most of our hold on, let me go, before I go back to Mexico, let me explain something here. I want to just touch on this just for a moment. Is when I mentioned that people came from 3 different regions, 70%, this also gives us an explanation as to why the Spanish in this area is not Castilian. So I wondered about that when I took a Spanish class in Wisconsin. How come they don't speak Castilian in Mexico, or even in different areas? Probably because of the region where they came from in Spain. And the 3 regions that we have coming from New Mexico, where our ancestors came from, these were fairly poor areas, and they didn't speak Castilian Spanish there. Castilian was more up north. So that's why our Spanish is different. It comes from the people who came from this area, because a lot of us think the Spanish is all the same in the whole country, and that's not true. Okay, so I did want to mention that. We're going to go back now to Mexico, and if you look at Mexico, the pattern that you see is that the people are in southern Mexico by Mexico City, and just one down here, but it's kind of like in a bunch here around the Mexico City area. A few here, a bunch right in here around Zacatecas, and just a right here. Each one of those are if you were to look at the dots, the majority of these people are from the purple, which would be Nueva Galicia, and this is Nueva España. Very few came from Vizcaya, which is the northern part there. But if you look at the numbers here, that 58% from the southern area. And Nueva Galicia, 50 people or 35%, and not many from the far north. And that was 143, where we had 180 some coming from Spain. What about other areas? Well, we had one person from Guatemala, two from Cuba, one from Greece, one from Italy, and one from Belgium. At the time, it was called Flanders. And only Juan Griego from Greece stayed in New Mexico. Everybody else here left. So 30 wives and children were not identified. We don't know what countries they're from. However, we would understand that at this time, you did not usually have single women go. It was mostly, either they were married to the men, or they were children, came over, or servants. So that's what we would see. It said that 50 other people were not identified, and most were servants listed as mestizos and mulattoes. And could they have been on the 1610 list? I don't know. Okay. I looked at the military, and I wanted to share with you this, that with the military, I wanted to break this down and try to see where did they come from. So I looked at Spain, and with Spain, you have the generals, which would be the top level, captain, medium, and alferez would be the lower ones. We had one general come from Spain. And I was thinking maybe they came from one region in particular. It pretty much followed the way the population is. Andalusia had the most people coming from Spain, and they also had, it seems to me, the most military people. Castilla Nueva was actually tied with them, and Extremida, but the other areas didn't have as many. And that pretty much follows the population who came here to New Mexico. Now, I will say that many of the people who came with the military, generally these would have been the people who didn't have enough money to come over. And so what's one way you can get over to the New World? That way is through the military. And okay, let me see if I can move this down. Okay. And military from Mexico, this kind of surprised me, because I guess in my mind, I was thinking most of your generals, most of the bigwigs would come from Spain, but in reality, most of your generals came from Mexico. 4 of them came from Nueva Galicia. 1 came from Vizcaya, none from España. But España had a lot of captains, a lot of alferezes. And maybe one reason for this is because in Mexico, the main area where they were having the battles against the Indians would have been in Nueva Galicia, the middle area. Okay. By the time of Oñate's expedition, Nueva España had been pretty much pacified. So you weren't seeing the big battles there. There were still some, but the big battles were happening in this area. So it would make sense that that's where you'd get more of your generals from. And then I looked at who stayed, and not many people stayed. Most people left. Why did they leave? Because New Mexico didn't have many riches. There was no gold or silver. The land was very difficult to farm. You had, especially like Apache Indian attacks, mostly the Apache, made life difficult. So I think a lot of these folks just decided to leave. And when we look at I'm always looking at patterns, there really was nothing big on the patterns. They pretty much followed the population of people who came here. Like Andalusia, people stayed in 1601, mostly from that area. Casa Nueva, I don't know what happened. You know what? This is probably, I don't know why I did them twice. Should have only been once. But Extremita, actually nobody stayed from that area. But what is interesting, the Canary Islanders stayed. A bunch of them stayed. I'm not really sure why. And Galicia, quite a few stayed from that area. By 1610, we get some new people moving in. And obviously you can see that because the numbers go up. Andalusia goes from 5 to 19. You got a few from, well, the guy from Barcelona stays. The Canary Islanders pretty much, they stayed through the whole time. And we get a big jump on the Castilla Nueva. I think that may have thrown my numbers off a little bit, that double 12. I'm just noticing that right now. But you can see the rest of them pretty much would go along with the same numbers as those folks who came over. Interesting, León and Murcia, nobody stayed from these areas, but somebody came at this time. In my family, that's just kind of like me looking at my numbers, and I see that 10 of mine came from the Spanish area. Now, and some of my members were, what happened was sometimes these people are in your family line more than once. So I think my personal numbers are off on my family there a little bit. But on Mexico, pretty much the same as the way the population came. You had only 9 Mexicans stay from 100, 143. That's a big drop. Very few decided to stay. But in this era here, they didn't really mention if they were, what area they were from. Just by this time, 52 folks from Mexico lived in New Mexico, which more of the additions were coming from there. That's what that tells me. And I think, okay, and then I just wanted to share with you just real quick on some other data about the people who came, and I'll try to finish this up because I'm really short on my time here. But when you look at the information is, many people came with their families, and many of the ones that came with their families tended to stay. And why is that? Probably because you just think some common sense. If you sold everything to go to New Mexico, you took your family, you basically have put all of your marbles in one basket. And to try to go back to Mexico is probably not going to be a good choice. So I said, we're just going to rough it out here and make it. Interesting, 100, this comes from Gary Felix's site, 176 came with armor, which is about 57% had armor. About half the people had horses. So and many of them had more than one horse. 10 people had servants. So that, you know, somebody says, oh, they were all rich going on this trip. Not a whole lot of them had servants. And by the way, the ones that had servants, only one stayed. So those folks, once they saw there was no money in this area, they left. And Oñate actually paid for 17 people, and only one person stayed. I didn't write down that fact, but one person stayed. Now, the other thing I just found as I was looking through Gary Felix's website is they always gave descriptions. They didn't always, but they gave descriptions of the expedition members. And the person who did this really seemed to be focused on hair color and scars. Generally, most of them had scars on their, on their forehead, probably from the helmets hitting, would be my guess. But I thought this one was interesting. I didn't really write this out where this makes a lot of sense. I have to explain this. But 58 people had chestnut colored hair, which is red, and 20 had black beards. So more of them had chestnut colored hair, which was kind of a shock to me. A few of them were beardless, but most of them wore beards. I guess beards were the thing back then. And the person who wrote down the description would always write down what kind of beard did they have. Did they have a light beard, scanty beard, full beard, rough beard? Very interesting that they took the. I found interesting that they took the time to write that down. And if you had no facial hair, they would that was written down. Now, it wasn't written down for everybody, so I don't know why they picked this for some people and some didn't. Does that mean these are the more important people? I don't know. There's more, that's one doggone thing about this. You look at history, you learn something, and it opens more doors, and you're wondering why things happen. But that's, but it's interesting they make the descriptions like that. Okay, so let's see. If you guys want to know more about the information, I don't have all the groups up, but these were some of the groups I've looked at. By the way, that Origin of New Mexico History book, for if you are looking at Oñate Expedition, this is like the grandfather book here. I mean, this is the Bible of New Mexico genealogy. Boy, has it gone up in price. I don't know if anybody I bought mine for $35 about 6 months ago. Today it's selling for $500. So I told touch my book. $500, sell it, Dad. No, I'm not going to do that. I do have a bibliography, and guys, I think it's an interesting topic. I'm always trying to expand my knowledge on this, and what you heard me tell you guys is there's more I still need to learn. And I think for anybody who learns history, they look at it like, I forgot that physicist, what was his name? What is his name? He talks about space, and he says, the more you get to know about space, the more you realize you don't know about things. And I find that so true about this history. The more I learn about it, the more I realize I really don't know much about it. It's amazing, and you always want to get you to want to learn more. So that is my speech, and I don't know. Let me see if I can take. And I'm sorry, I didn't answer the chat questions. I'm sure that may.
Before we answer the chat questions, I was going to ask Sergio Pavon to give us kind of a summary of what you talked about in his observation. And then we'll take it to the Q&A, okay? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Perfect. Sergio, please.
Thank you, Marta. And of course, it's a pleasure to be with all of you. I'm Sergio Pavon, connecting from Europe, and I'm a member of the association Héroes de Cavite, which I want to thank, of course, to the organizers and to the speaker, this important and very interesting presentation. So Gary, from here, from Héroes de Cavite headquarters, that was really an excellent, a very, very interesting presentation. I was really amazed of the level and detail of your work research, even being able to identify from which region and province in Spain and which other countries in Europe the participants of the Oñate expedition were taking part. That's really amazing. And basically, I'm not going to enter to make a summary of the presentation made by Gary. I think all of us had the chance to have access, but I would like to add something which is important, and it's basically that I think actually that presentations like the one that Gary has done today, they're very important because it somehow it allows the people that they have some Hispanic roots to recuperate their own history, because it is a history which somehow for centuries, for political reasons or whatever, has been put beside. And there is more and more a demand for the public to try to know a different version of the history. And I think actually that the presentation we saw today with Gary fits perfectly on this road, on this objective. Of course, I mean, I always say that if you really want to know the truth about something in life, you must always know the two sides of the story. One side of the story, I think Gary has literally referred to all this controversy that is lately coming around the United States. But then at the other side of the story, we've got presentations like the one today made by Gary, which basically says that there is indeed a contribution on the roots of some South states in the United States with Spanish roots, not only with Spanish, but also with Portuguese, with Greek, with Flemish, etc. So some European roots that actually they need to be known and they need to be actually said to people around. And of course, besides of the technical very good things that we saw today with your presentation, there is another personal connotation which Gary has presented, which was the promise he made to her grandmother in order to come with that work and that ebook. And on top of, as I say, the technical good things that you presented, there is also something additional to your presentation, Gary, which is the personal side. And I only can say I'm amazed. And if I will be your grandmother, I will be absolutely proud of it. So congratulations. Thank you very much. Well done in the name of Héroes de Cavite headquarters in Europe, in Spain. And that's it, Marta. I think that the only thing that I can say is that I will really push all the people that they are attending us to come on this direction, to try to find out more about our common history. Because, of course, what is important here is that we do not try to impose a version of the history. We just try to present a different version. And then it's for people to freely choose which is the version they want to have. The problem is when they only have one single version, they cannot choose. There's no freedom. And this is what we try to do from our association with your association. And we try basically to say to the people, there is another version of history outside there, which is extremely interesting. So thank you very much in my name. I will pass the floor back to Marta and to Gary. And congratulations, Gary, in our name. Excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Martha. So
Yes, thank you so much, Sergio. I appreciate that beautiful summary. And yes, Gary, you did such a fabulous job. And I'm sure that you made your grandmother very proud. And as well as all your abuelitos, because that's one of the things that I really want to bring everyone to understand is how proud we are and should be of our ancestors, of everyone that came before us, who made history for us, and now that we continue to do so. So let's open it to the questions. Carlos, are you available with some of the questions?
all right. Yeah, I am. Okay. If you want to.
Uh-oh, did we get stuck?
I think he got stuck. Gary, do you want to unshare your screen so that we can?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Hold on. Stop share. Sure.
There,
Okay,
so we can see
okay.
And so if you have a question, you can go ahead and present it. Or Carlos, did you want to mention anything?
Yeah, if you want to, I have a question.
Yes.
Written in the chat box. If somebody wants to jump in, now it's the time. We encourage some interaction. I think it's very important to see our faces. I will, okay, Sergio Pavón, go.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry for jumping again into the speaker, but mostly I wanted to know, and some people here are really asking, which were the sources for you to get this valuable information? Were you based in paperwork, computer investigation, going back into missions, universities, or by internet? How could you substantiate basically all these historic events? Thank you.
Okay. Some of the places like when I first started looking at the names of the ancestors, the people who went, I looked at Gary Felix's website, and he has by alphabetical who went on the expedition. I also looked at the book New Mexico's First Colonists with David Snow to give me an idea exactly what regions what places the expedition members come from. And also the other book I mentioned earlier, Spanish Colonial Settlement and Landscapes in New Mexico, was a big help. And of course, what we call the Bible of New Mexico genealogy. I don't know if you can see it, but Origins of New Mexico Families, the book that's now selling for $500. Well, that's like gold right there. But I've also looked at other websites. I have not gotten a chance to get to the archives. I would love to do that. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine, Al Borrego, he goes on trips and to Spain and Mexico, and that's going to be one of the things I want to do, is to get out there and actually see the archives and read from the actual information. I can read in Spanish. My speaking, I'm not very good at speaking Spanish, but I can read it. I'm trying to think where else I've looked. I've read multiple books about this. So, but the books I mentioned, those were my primary sources right there.
One of the books that I really recommend for anyone to read, if you're interested, is Don Juan de Oñate, Colonizer of New Mexico. It's 2 huge volumes like this. These are the closest translations from Spanish to English of the archives that we have in print. You are welcome to, if you're interested, the archives are in Mexico City as well as in Sevilla at Archivos de las Indias.
Yep, there is a very important source now that you mention it, the Archivo de Indias, Archives of the Indies in Seville, and they are digitalizing, scanning. A lot of the material is out there to do research. Recently, I shared the first census of, a fragment of it, the first census of, I think it was Gary, I don't know if you remember, but it was from the first expedition of Oñate,
Yes.
the first. So there are like really revealing material that it's coming up right now. There's like Spain was a little bit behind, I think, on that, and I think we're trying to catch up, or they're trying to catch up. I would like to go next with Peter. Peter, if you want to turn on your mic, and you'd like to introduce yourself, maybe.
Actually, I'd like to introduce Peter.
Okay,
That's all right. I just have a question. I just have a
our
question.
city
I don't.
just a question. Yep.
Yeah,
So
I just have a question.
I'm
I'm
gonna
just
go
curious.
ahead with a question. All right.
So there's a lot of research that has been done by a number of historians and anthropologists, specifically Dr. Stanley Horries, who is based in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, about some of the founding families and their Converso and Sephardic Jewish history. So I'm just kind of curious to Gary, what his research has shown about the presence of Sephardic Jewish and Converso families in the Oñate expedition.
Okay, and that area I haven't gotten to yet. And that's why I didn't really mention it too much. I know that you have families in northern New Mexico are really involved in that, and of course, I think one of the big incentives they have, besides just wanting to know their own history, is I know that Spain was offering dual citizenship if you can prove that one of your ancestors was of Sephardic Jewish ancestry. So that's like, yeah, that's one of those areas I want to get into. I haven't touched on that yet, but that's going to be one of the next areas I want to touch on. So
Peter, I think it might be wonderful to invite him to talk about this.
Yeah, I think I mean, I think for those that are interested, there's a really great academic resource, which is the Society for Crypto-Judaic Studies, which has existed since, I believe 1996, and really focusing on this sort of this, you want to talk about unknown histories, this is unknown history of unknown histories, but there is a sizable phenomenon throughout Latin America, not just necessarily through the Camino Real of Hispanic and Latino rediscovery of Sephardic and Jewish roots. And I believe, I was talking to Martha, I actually think that Oñate's mother herself was a converso as well. Well, I think either she had converted or her mother had converted. So I think in terms of your research, Gary, and looking at your family, I think that there's a lot left to discover about that. And I think history, good, bad, or otherwise, I think the more we know, and I think that's your larger point as well, right? The more that we know about our own history, the more control we have of our future and our present as well. No matter where that is, no matter where those research lead to, the more complexity we have, the more we get away from black and whites and into a kaleidoscope of colors and shades, the more rich our own sense of self is. And so I applaud you for the work that you're doing in your presentation today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I do want to let everyone know that Peter Schwarzbein is our city rep. He's city rep number 1 for area number 1 in El Paso, Texas. And I am so pleased that you were here with us. Thank you so much, Peter.
Just a lover of history.
That's beautiful.
Ditto.
All right. Any more hands? Any more questions?
And by the way, I did read some of the chats. That was very interesting what Miguel mentioned. Because I had mentioned in my speech that on the eastern part of Spain, we didn't have anybody from that area that went on the expedition. He said that area just was not really populated until centuries later. So that's kind of what I guessed, but I didn't want to say that if I wasn't too sure at the time, but I was thinking that's probably pretty rough terrain out there and not real habitable for folks to live in. So thank you for that. That kind of clarified my thinking on that.
Thank you, Gary.
Nice to meet you, Gary, and thanks for the Association of Cavite to organize this event. Spain has always had that issue, that the population of Spain has been always really, really low. The dimension of Spain is huge, and the population always has been a little. It's like Arkansas or Alabama.
Okay.
So the population in that moment, the only city with 1 million of people was Sevilla. That's in the south of Spain. The rest of Spain,
not as big.
No. So that's key. And nowadays, 400 years after, there are population just in Andalusia, Madrid, and Catalonia. The other areas are not really populated.
Oh, okay.
So that explains. And you will be very welcome if you visit us in Spain. We will treat you.
I definitely plan on doing that.
Yes, I did want to mention that we have Mr. Paco Moreno with us, who gives a wonderful talk about why Spain actually started coming out west. Paco gave a wonderful talk in Cartagena. The Spanish were looking for Asia, and they continued to look for Asia. So even in Don Juan de Oñate's quest to come west or north, they were still looking to find a passageway because they could not very easily make their way to China, India, because the Moors were blocking their way there. So, Paco, I think we need to get your talk in English so that people can learn more about what was happening.
I'm fully sorry, but my English is very poor. I'm too old to improve it. I have no time. Thank you very much anyway, Marta. You are lovely.
Thank you. Anyone else? We will continue to have these chats in English, and I want to thank everyone for taking their Saturday afternoon to learn more about history and to be here with us. We hope that you will join Héroes de Cavite in the US. For those of you that have not joined but are interested, we would like to have you. And as we were saying, we want to fill in the blanks. We want to fill in the blanks with the true story. Carlos, anything
I
else?
think that's all. I just want to thank you all, and this is the first of many. Okay, we're really thankful to Gary especially. Okay, you're
Thank
really
you.
breaking the ice and tearing down this wall. Okay, me as an American as a U.S. citizen of Hispanic origin, for me it's really touchy when I meet somebody who is kind of honoring the roots. And I find that we're meeting halfway, because there is loss on your end and there's some loss on our end, and there's so much of this rich history that we share, and that we need to be at least kind of honor it by getting to know it. So so that's it, everybody who's been here. Thank you so much, and we will continue every week, at least. We like to do, I'm sorry, like twice every other week, at least a couple times a month, the very least. There are so many people who can lecture us about different topics. So if you feel that you can contribute by any means, we have historians, we have archaeologists, but if you are listening right now and you like to contribute, or you have any comment, please send an email to Amigos of Hispanic History USA. Okay, Amigos Hispanic History USA at gmail.com, or Héroes de Cavite. Reach out through social media, you name it, and we will be so happy to have you. All right, so thank you everybody for attending tonight, or tonight if you're in Spain, but rather in the afternoon in the US. All right. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Martha.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Enjoyed
you.
it.
All right.
Thank you, Gary.
Sure, I enjoyed it. Thank you
Sergio.
for having me.